Welcome back, my friends. Our story tonight begins deep within an ancient snowy forest, where a young girl named Isla was about to discover the secret library of dreams. Isla loved books more than anything. Every night before sleep, she imagined magical worlds filled with adventure, peace, and wonder. But recently, life had felt difficult. School pressure, friendship worries, big emotions she could not fully explain, and some nights her mind felt too busy to sleep peacefully. One snowy evening, while walking home through the forest beside her village, Isla noticed golden lights glowing between the trees. Curious, she followed them carefully. The deeper she walked, the quieter the forest became. Snowflakes drifted softly through silver moonlight. The trees sparkled with frost, and eventually, she discovered an enormous hidden library carved into the side of a snowy mountain. Its windows glowed warm gold against the cold night air. Above the entrance were the words, "The Secret Library of Dreams." Isla stepped quietly inside. The library was breathtaking. Towering shelves stretched endlessly upward. Thousands of glowing books floated gently through the air. Fireplaces crackled softly beside giant velvet chairs, and peaceful music echoed faintly through the halls. An old librarian wearing a cloak covered in stars approached her slowly. "Welcome," she whispered kindly. "Every book here contains a peaceful dream." Isla stared around in amazement. "A dream?" The librarian nodded gently. "Some dreams help tired hearts rest." She guided Isla through endless glowing shelves until they reached a small silver book resting alone on a table. The cover shimmered softly. Written across it were the words, "The Forest Where Worries Sleep." The librarian smiled warmly. "This story is special," she whispered. As Isla opened the book, something magical happened. The library slowly disappeared around her. Suddenly, she found herself standing inside a beautiful glowing forest, beneath thousands of stars. Tiny lights drifted through the trees. Streams shimmered silver beneath moonlight, and peaceful creatures slept quietly beneath giant glowing flowers. A gentle fox appeared beside her. "Welcome to the forest where worries sleep," the fox whispered softly. "Here, heavy thoughts come to rest." The fox guided Isla through the peaceful forest. Everywhere she looked, she saw sleeping worries transformed into glowing butterflies, floating peacefully into the sky. Fear became light. Stress became wind. Sadness became drifting stars. The fox smiled gently. "Thoughts do not need to be carried forever. Take a moment to think about that. I'm sure your future self will thank you." Eventually, the fox led Isla to a giant glowing tree in the center of the forest. The tree shimmered softly beneath the stars. Its branches stretched endlessly toward the moon. "This is the dream tree," the fox whispered. "Whenever somebody needs peace, the tree helps hold their worries while they rest." Isla sat peacefully beneath the glowing branches. Then slowly, she imagined placing every heavy thought gently into the roots of the tree. One by one, the worries faded softly into the earth. And as they disappeared, her body relaxed more deeply. Her breathing softened, her mind became calm and quiet. The fox curled beside her peacefully, and before long, Isla drifted into the gentlest sleep beneath the glowing dream tree. Now, my friends, our next story begins beside a silent desert where the stars looked brighter than anywhere else in the world. A young traveler named Elias wandered slowly through the warm nighttime sand beside his camel. Elias had traveled for many days, searching for answers about life, peace, and happiness. But secretly, he felt exhausted. The more he searched, the more confused he became. One quiet evening, while camping beneath the stars, Elias noticed music drifting softly across the desert wind. Beautiful, calming music, unlike anything he had ever heard before. Curious, he followed the sound through glowing dunes until he discovered a hidden city made entirely of lantern light. Golden lanterns floated through the air like tiny moons. Peaceful fountains shimmered beneath the stars, and the entire city felt silent and calm. At the center of the city sat an elderly woman beside a glowing fire. She smiled as Elias approached. "You look tired," she whispered softly. Elias sighed deeply. "I've spent so long searching for peace." The woman nodded gently. "And where have you been searching?" Elias thought for a moment. "Everywhere." The woman smiled warmly. "That is why you have not found it." Elias looked confused. The woman pointed toward the stars above. Peace does not arrive from chasing more and more. Sometimes peace appears when we finally stop running. Take a moment to reflect on that, because many people spend their whole lives searching outside themselves for something already quietly waiting within. The woman handed Elias a warm cup of tea. Together, they sat silently watching lanterns float peacefully through the desert night. No rushing, no pressure, only stillness. And slowly, for the first time in many years, Elias stopped searching, stopped worrying, stopped trying to control everything. And in that quiet moment, he finally felt peace. Now, my friends, as tonight's mindfulness sleep journey slowly comes to an end, I want you to remember something important. You do not need to carry every worry tonight. You do not need to solve everything before sleep. And you do not need to keep racing endlessly inside your mind. Sometimes, rest itself becomes healing. So as your body softens and your breathing slows, remember tonight's stories. You can let worries drift away like lanterns across peaceful water. Like Isla, thoughts can rest safely beneath the dream tree. And like Elias, peace often appears when we finally stop chasing and simply become present. Good night and sweet dream. Our next story tonight begins far beyond the snowy mountains, inside a hidden valley where nighttime never felt frightening, only peaceful. In that quiet valley lived a young girl named Arya. Every evening before sleep, Arya climbed a grassy hill behind her home and watched the stars appear one by one across the sky. She loved the silence of nighttime, the cool breeze, the glowing moon, the sound of wind moving softly through the long grass. But lately, Arya's mind had become restless. Too many thoughts, too many worries, too much noise inside her head. Even when everyone else slept peacefully, her mind stayed awake imagining problems, mistakes, and fears about tomorrow. One quiet evening, while lying beneath the stars, Arya noticed something unusual, a single glowing feather slowly drifting down from the sky. The feather shimmered silver beneath the moonlight. Curious, Arya carefully picked it up. The moment she touched it, the feather began blowing softly warmer in her hands. Then suddenly, a gentle voice whispered through the night air, "Follow the feather." Arya blinked in surprise. Slowly, the feather floated upward into the sky, then drifted gently toward the hills beyond the valley. Arya quietly followed. The deeper she walked into the hills, the calmer the world became. The wind softened, the stars glowed brighter, and eventually she discovered a hidden staircase carved into the side of the mountain itself. Thousands of tiny lanterns floated beside the stairs like glowing fireflies. At the very top stood an enormous silver tree glowing beneath the moonlight. Its branches stretched across the sky like rivers of light. And beneath the tree sat an old woman wrapped in a cloak filled with tiny stars. The woman smiled warmly. "Welcome to the Tree of Quiet Dreams," she whispered softly. Arya sat carefully beside her. The old woman gently touched the glowing tree. Immediately, the branches above them shimmered softly like music. Every leaf on this tree, the woman explained, holds a worry somebody finally let go before sleep. Arya looked up in amazement. Thousands upon thousands of glowing silver leaves drifted peacefully in the night air. The old woman smiled gently. Many people try to sleep while still holding every fear tightly inside their mind. But peaceful sleep begins when we finally allow ourselves to release what we cannot control tonight. Take a moment to reflect on that, because tomorrow always feels lighter when the mind finally rests. The old woman handed Arya a tiny silver leaf. "Place your worries here," she whispered kindly. Slowly, Arya closed her eyes, then imagined placing all her heavy thoughts into the glowing leaf. Fear, pressure, stress, confusion, sadness. One by one, she let them go. The leaf began glowing brighter and brighter. Then gently, it floated upward into the glowing branches above. And as it disappeared among the silver leaves, something inside Arya softened completely. Her breathing slowed. Her thoughts became quieter. And for the first time in many nights, she felt peaceful. The old woman smiled warmly. The stars do not rush. The moon does not rush. The trees do not rush. And you do not need to rush either. Arya rested peacefully beneath the glowing tree, while silver leaves drifted slowly through the cool night air. And eventually, without even noticing, she drifted gently into sleep beneath the stars. Now, my friends, our next story tonight begins beside a magical river that only appears after midnight. A young boy named Finn loved exploring the forests near his village. During the daytime, the forest felt normal. Birds singing, sunlight through trees, animals moving through bushes. But at night, the forest felt magical. Silver moonlight covered the pathways. Tiny glowing insects floated through the air, and everything became peaceful and quiet. One evening, unable to sleep, Finn wandered quietly into the forest beneath the stars. As he walked, he heard something unusual. Soft music drifting gently through the trees. Curious, he followed the sound deeper into the forest. Eventually, he discovered a glowing river he had never seen before. The water shimmered silver beneath the moonlight, like liquid stars. Tiny glowing fish drifted peacefully beneath the surface, and floating slowly down the river were hundreds of glowing paper boats. Finn stared in wonder. An old man wearing a long blue cloak sat beside the river smiling peacefully. "Welcome," the old man whispered softly. "This is the river of letting go." Finn sat beside him quietly. The river moved slowly and peacefully through the glowing forest. The old man handed Finn a small paper boat. Every night, people place their worries into these boats and allow the river to carry them away. Finn looked down at the tiny boat in his hands. "Do worries really disappear?" he asked softly. The old man smiled gently. "Not always immediately, but the mind becomes calmer when we stop carrying everything all alone." Take a moment to think about that. I'm sure your future self will thank you. Finn carefully closed his eyes, then imagined placing all his worries into the paper boat. Fear about school, embarrassing moments, pressure, sad memories, worries about the future. One by one, he let them drift gently into the boat. Then carefully, he placed the tiny boat onto the glowing river. Slowly, it floated peacefully away beneath the stars. The old man smiled softly. Beautiful. The river shimmered quietly beside them. No rushing, no pressure, only stillness, only peace. Finn watched hundreds of glowing boats drifting silently through the moonlit forest. And slowly, his thoughts became softer too. The old man pointed toward the sky. The stars reflected perfectly across the water. "The mind becomes clear when we stop fighting every thought," he whispered gently. Finn breathed slowly beside the river. The cool night breeze touched the trees, The glowing water moved peacefully through the forest, and before long, his eyes became heavy with sleepiness. The old man smiled kindly. "The river will carry your worries tonight. You can rest now." And peacefully, Finn drifted into the gentlest sleep beside the glowing river of letting go. Now, my friends, our final story tonight begins high above the clouds, where a hidden village floated peacefully beneath the stars. A young girl named Mira often dreamed about flying, not in airplanes, but freely through the sky itself. Every night before sleep, she imagined drifting peacefully among clouds and stars far above the world below. One evening, during a beautiful thunderstorm, Mira noticed something glowing outside her bedroom window. A tiny floating lantern drifting through the rain. Inside the lantern was a note written in golden ink. It read, "For dreamers seeking peace. Follow the sleeping clouds." Curious, Mira quietly opened her window. The lantern floated gently upward into the stormy sky, and somehow, instead of feeling afraid, Mira felt peaceful. She followed the lantern through glowing rain clouds until suddenly the storm disappeared completely. Above the clouds, the sky was perfectly calm. Thousands of stars shared endlessly around her, and floating peacefully in the sky above the clouds was a hidden village made entirely of glowing lantern light. Soft bridges connected tiny floating homes. Wind chimes sang gently in the cool air. In glowing gardens drifted slowly among the clouds. An elderly man wearing robes covered in moon symbols greeted her warmly. "Welcome to Cloud Haven," he whispered softly. Mira looked around in amazement. The floating village felt calm beyond words. Nobody rushed, nobody shouted. Everything moved peacefully and slowly. The old man smiled gently. "People arrive here when their hearts have forgotten how to rest." Mira lowered her eyes quietly. "My mind feels noisy all the time," she admitted. The old man nodded kindly, then pointed toward the clouds drifting below them. "Do the clouds stay forever?" Mira shook her head. "No." "Thoughts are the same," he whispered softly. "They move through the mind like clouds moving through the sky. You do not need to chase every one. Take a moment to reflect on that, because peaceful sleep begins when we stop holding on to every passing thought." The old man guided Mira through glowing cloud gardens filled with silver flowers. Eventually, they reached a peaceful balcony overlooking the endless stars below. Warm blankets rested beside glowing lanterns. The old man smiled softly. "Tonight, the stars will watch over your worries." Mira wrapped herself in the warm blanket. The cool, peaceful wind drifted softly through the clouds. Lanterns glowed gently around her, and high above the world below, her thoughts slowly drifted softer and softer, until eventually she fell peacefully asleep beneath the endless stars. Now, my friends, as these magical stories slowly come to an end, remember something important. You do not need to carry every worry tonight. You do not need to solve everything before sleep. And you do not need to hold on to every thought passing through your mind. Like Arya, you can release worries into the tree of quiet dreams. Like Finn, you can allow the river of letting go to carry heavy thoughts away. You can rest peacefully while thoughts drift by like clouds beneath the stars. Thank you for joining tonight's mindfulness stories, and I'll see you again in the next peaceful journey.